Hello everyone, welcome back to a new post today. We all know that the system of government of India is based on the parliamentary system of governance. We follow the parliamentary system both at the centre as well as the state, which is based on the majority party rule. So which political party has a majority forms the government, both either it is at the parliament, that is in the Lok Sabha, or in the state legislative assemblies. And now this sometimes gives an avenue for defections. And one such government which was in news last year for defections and also the split in a political party, as well as the contest for the original party symbol as well as the constitution, is the Shiv Sena in Maharashtra. So there was a split, and then the government was formed with the Eknath Shinde camp, and the government which resigned was the Uddhav Thackeray Maha Vikas Aghadi government. Now this dispute is being heard by the Supreme Court, and part of it has been referred now to a larger bench to decide whether on the powers of the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court, while deciding on the question of legitimacy of the actions of the governor, at that point of time in Maharashtra, along with the formation of the government by the Eknath Shinde camp and the manner in which the floor test was held, and also some of the powers with regard to the decision on the disqualification petitions, where the power is with the speaker, was decided and spoken about. So some important points came to the fore while the Supreme Court was deciding on petitions from both the Uddhav Thackeray faction as well as the Eknath Shinde camp as well, who's in the government right now. So this all is really very important, not only from your executive part, that is your UPSC mains GS paper 2, but also from your legislature and also the functioning and the working of the parliamentary democracy in India. Let's go into the most important points that the Supreme Court really brought out, and which will be helpful to you not only to understand the manner of which we function in India and also the working of the parliamentary system in India as well. So the verdict was given by a 5-judge constitution bench now that was chaired by the Chief Justice of India, Justice Chandrachud, and it comprised also Justices M.R. Shah, Krishna Murari, Hima Kohli and P.S. Narasimha. The Supreme Court was deciding on the political upheaval that happened in Maharashtra last year, and in 2 time frames. So there was the Shiv Sena camp of Uddhav Thackeray that was ruling at that time, but after that, because of certain dissent, the party split and most of the MLAs took sides to Eknath Shinde, who went on to form the government with the help of the BJP. Now the Supreme Court is deciding on this political upheaval, and it's looking at it in 2 time frames. The events that led to Uddhav Thackeray's resignation on June 29th last year, that's 2022, and also the subsequent developments which went on to appoint the chief whip of the party, the decision of the speaker to withhold the disqualification petitions, and also the power of the speaker, whether while the speaker facing disqualification himself can actually go on to decide on the petitions of disqualification on defection under 10th schedule or the anti-defection law. The bench were deciding whether the governor had the right to conduct the floor test in just 2 days, whether the split in the Shiv Sena was really legitimate, whether it was a split or whether it was just a dissent by some MLAs towards Uddhav Thackeray, whether the speaker can decide disqualification when he himself is actually facing disqualification. Let us look at some of the most important points that the Supreme Court has made in this regard. Firstly, Supreme Court invalidated the governor's decision to call for a floor test of Thackeray, and also invalidated a decision of asking Shinde to form the government because he had the majority numbers at that time. Supreme Court invalidated Maharashtra governor's decision asking Uddhav Thackeray to face the floor test in June last year, but stopped short of actually installing back the Uddhav Thackeray as the chief minister because he had resigned on his own. The court said that it cannot squash the resignation that had been submitted voluntarily by Uddhav Thackeray at that period of time. Had Mr. Thackeray refrained from resigning from the post of the chief minister, the court said they would have considered the grant of a remedy by reinstating the government headed by him. It declared that the governor, Bhagat Koshyari, was not justified in asking Thackeray to face a floor test, since it had no objective material to construe that the Maha Vikas Aghadi or MVA government had lost the majority. It found nothing wrong in Koshyari inviting Shinde to form the new government on 30th of June on the basis of the letter of support that was given by the Bharatiya Janata Party MLAs supporting Eknath Shinde. After Thackeray resigned, the bench noted that the post of the CM had fallen vacant, and therefore the leader of the party, that is Devendra Fadnavis of BJP, had returned the highest number of candidates to the state assembly, that time extending support on behalf of the party to Eknath Shinde, and the Shiv Sena and the BJP went on to form the government, which is justified, the Supreme Court said. Secondly, the court refused to invalidate the election of the Speaker Rahul Narwarkar just because some MLAs who were facing disqualification charges under anti-defection law participated in the election of the Speaker. Thirdly, the court refused a plea by Thackeray faction to call for the disqualification petitions to be decided by the court themselves and instead of the Speaker. The Supreme Court said that the Speaker is the appropriate authority to decide on the disqualification petition under the 10th schedule or the anti-defection law and not the judiciary. Fourthly, the court said that the court laid down a map of factors now that the Speaker should consider while deciding on the disqualification petitions. Let me tell you that the members who defected from the Uddhav Thackeray camp are facing the disqualification under 10th schedule of the Constitution because of defection. So, what are the factors that the Supreme Court now laid down for the Speaker, the present Speaker, to decide on the disqualification petition or the petitions of these MLAs? So, number one, Speaker should not accept Shinde's group's sole defense that there was merely a split and not a defection from the Shiv Sena party. Number two, Speaker, while considering the question of which faction is the real Shiv Sena faction, must consider the version of the party's constitution that was submitted to the Election Commission, and this should be the 2018 constitution of the Shiv Sena faction. Number three, Speaker must not be swayed by just mere numbers in the House. Now, fifthly, these are the factors. These are the three factors that were laid down by the Supreme Court for the Speaker to consider while deciding on the disqualification petitions of the Maharashtra MLAs. So, coming back to the original points, so fifthly, the Supreme Court found out that the decision of the Speaker to appoint Gogawale as the Chief Whip was illegal. The court said that the Speaker, by recognizing the action of a faction of Shiv Sena Legislative Party without determining the will of the whole political party, acted on contrary of the 10th schedule of the Constitution, and therefore they are liable for disqualification. Sixthly, the Supreme Court found that the Speaker's decision to recognize Shinde as the leader of the Legislative Assembly of Maharashtra was illegal too. Seventhly, the Supreme Court said that Speaker Narwarkar's decision to stay the disqualification proceedings of this MLAs in anticipation of the decision of the Election Commission on which of the two political factions would be the original political party was actually wrong. Eighthly, the Supreme Court referred to the larger bench the decision now to decide whether the Speaker, who himself is facing disqualification charges, can decide on the disqualification petitions of the MLAs, as we all know that the appropriate authority under the 10th schedule of the Constitution to decide on the disqualification is the Speaker. In the Nibam Rebia case, let me remind you, the Supreme Court held that the Speaker, who himself is under a cloud, could not hear or decide the disqualification petitions under the 10th schedule of the Constitution when his own position was not yet clear. And ninthly, the Supreme Court went on to go in deep regarding the Governor's use of his office to bring about a fall in the government. The Supreme Court said that the former Maharashtra Governor Bhagat Singh Koshyari mistook a section of Shiv Sena MLA's expression of discontent or dissent within the Maha Vikas Aghadi government for the withdrawal of support, and calling for a floor test just within 2 days was not to be accepted at all. The governor's call for the floor test on June 28th led to the resignation of Uddhav Thackeray as the Chief Minister very next day. Communication expressing discontent on part of some MLAs is not sufficient for the governor to call for a floor test. This is what the Constitution bench said. Dissent and disagreement within the political party must be resolved in accordance with the remedies prescribed under the party constitution. The political crisis in Maharashtra was spurred by intra-party differences, the court said. The flow test cannot be used as a medium to resolve internal party disputes or intra-party disputes. This is what the Supreme Court said. There is a marked difference between a party not supporting the government and the individuals within a party just expressing their discontent within the party leadership and their functioning. This is what the Chief Justice of India said. And neither the Constitution nor the laws enacted by the Parliament provide for a mechanism by which disputes amongst the members of the political party can actually be settled. They certainly do not empower the government to enter into a political arena and play a role either in inter-party disputes or intra-party disputes. And therefore, the Supreme Court went on to say that the governor cannot use his office to precipitate the fall of a government. The Supreme Court criticized the manner in which the governor Koshyari called for a flow test in just 2 days, which led to the resignation of Uddhav Thackeray. The governor could not have acted as on an inference. So the governor just acted on a mere inference of his own understanding that a faction of Shiv Sena who had a dissent or a problem with the original party leadership expressed their withdrawal. So the Supreme Court went on to say that the governor took the dissent to withdrawal of support from the Shiv Sena camp, and this was really illegal, and the governor cannot use his office to precipitate the fall of a government, which is not right. So these are the important points that the Supreme Court went on to make in this important political crisis case of Maharashtra, which has been dragging from since a long period of time. Most important points highlighted here are the governor's office, the speaker, and also the Nibam Rebia case as well, and also regarding what are the grounds that the speaker should consider while deciding on the disqualification petitions of the MLAs. So I hope this information was really helpful to you all to really understand the working and the nuances of the parliamentary democracy, especially with regard to the governor and the speaker's office, most importantly towards the 10th schedule of the constitution and the real happenings in which have been tested in Maharashtra, decision of the Supreme Court as well. So we should just now wait for the 7-judge Supreme Court Constitution bench that is going to decide now whether, when the speaker is facing a disqualification himself, he can really decide or hear disqualification petitions on the 10th schedule, and that will lay the basis for you for further better understanding of the speaker's office. I hope this information was really helpful to you all, and if you did, please do like, share, subscribe, and I shall see you in my next post. Until then, very, very happy learning.